Nothing we say is investment advice. Please pause on all 3 pages of this disclaimer and read it.
Good morning, everybody. Nick, aka the Algo Cowboy here. It is 8:31 a.m. EST, and we just got some news, and it is already affecting the markets. So let's jump right into it. I'm looking here at EURUSD, and I had told my Algo Factory members just a few minutes ago before this candle went down right here as I zoom into it. Before that happened, I told them it was probably going to happen with the news. We didn't know for sure, and I don't really trade the news, but I might trade this. I'll show you how. It might be too late. Might not be able to do anything about it, but it looks like it's going to come down to these 2 levels. There's support here at 117 and at 116.60, right? So just a little tough to catch this move because the news caused it, right? But here's the candle. You can see it's just one massive move down. Big candle. And these kind of candles, they tend to retrace, right? Right now, it must have been a major miss on the news because it's not pulling back yet. And, I'm not going to FOMO into candles. I'm not going to just short some massive candle that went down like this. I'm going to wait until it makes sense and there's good risk to reward. So there was no way I could catch this move based on my own rules. But let's take a look at what the news actually said. Looks like the GDP was a lot stronger than expected, but unemployment was a little bit worse than expected. So GDP being about, 3.8% versus 3.3. So that's a strong deal, right? That's that's a strong look. That's a dollar strong look, by the way. And with the unemployment claims not being too far off, then that's going to weigh things down in the markets because everything is traded against the dollar, in this case, the euro. Now, Bitcoin, that move happened. It was less dramatic and it got pushed right back up. And I know the title of the show was about Bitcoin, so let's take a look at it. Now, Bitcoin is in a pretty wide range right now. And even on the lower time frame, it was ranging, right? But there's I'm going to look lower time frame for now, just so you can kind of see what I'm looking at. Price was kind of pulling this range right here. The last, this whole week from Monday until today, it deviated here, but got monkey hammered down, and that was yesterday morning. And now it tried to pop down and out, but it appears to be holding for the moment, right? So, Bitcoin, if you go back to last weekend or even really last Thursday, has made its way down a significant degree. I mean, not a huge dump. It looks like a lot on this low time frame. But one thing that people always should do is zoom out. But it's gone down a total of 5.8%. In the world of crypto, that's not as big of a deal as you might think. But let's go ahead and take a look at where all the liquidity is over on the Kingfisher. And we'll see. Okay, so you have a bit of liquidity starting at about 114,600, but a lot up at 115.6. So 114.6 to 115.6. So let's go ahead and manipulate this to reflect what's going on there. 114.6. And then there's a lot of liquidity at 115.6. So the yellow box is where the liquidity was yesterday, and as the shorts piled on and the chart moved down, you can see that liquidity shifted downward. So that yellow box is where the liquidity is, and it even matches up with this consolidation that occurred up here, which is going to be, you could call this chart liquidity, if you will, right? A lot of price action here. So, I mean, there is going to be a temptation if the algos can flip positive, if price can hold, ideally for this scenario above 111,500, then you might see it still pop up. And as it stands right now, price is holding. It's holding right here in this range, where other things are not. Now, the NASDAQ bounced off of our target from the head and shoulders trade that we talked about yesterday in Algo Factory, and that played out, and it's even kind of pushing up after the news. But the euro itself, morning V, how you doing, sir?
Good, buddy. How are you?
Doing good. All the stuff that I called out yesterday for the private live labs happening now, or things that I called out this morning, is that the news kind of pushed this. So there really wasn't any. Let me fix the screen, folks. Give me a second. There wasn't any safe way to catch this trade. The only way to catch this trade was to gamble on the news, which is not the way that I operate. So I'm going to have to wait for everything to shape up. But strong move down in the euro, and then a consolidation and a further move down. And I do think, I think it's going to head all the way down at least to 116, and I think that could happen. You know, that could happen today. But this was a big reversal in trend. I talked about this yesterday. There were nothing but higher highs and higher lows. So for whatever reason, the dollar reversed. And if you look at the dollar in general compared to a lot of different currencies, like say by looking at the DXY chart, you can see the dollar's getting stronger. And if I zoom out, what you're going to notice is that the dollar itself has been weakening going back to January of 2025. So all year long, the dollar has weakened. But I told, again, Algo Factory yesterday that it seems to have double bottom and support right at this 95 to 96 area, right? So that being the case, we might start to see the dollar flip and turn strong. And in reality, this is almost backwards, right? So we'll talk more about that in Algo Factory, what that might look like in the future. But for now, I'm going to look at Bitcoin because I know that's the kind of the subject of the title here. And what do I think is going to happen? I've been trading Bitcoin a long time, and price is definitely ranging at the moment. And I'd say the best way to look at this range would be like this. It's not that clean of a range, and I do prefer two touches on bottom, which we haven't seen. One could look at it this way. This is probably the better way. This is appropriate. And you had a deviation here on the bottom where price tried to dip out of the range. And it looks like we might even see a deviation right now. And there's a strong support for Bitcoin at about 107,000 as per not only that prior deviation, but you can see that there's a lot of liquidity in the past. You had these consolidations going on in this area. So price was able to dip down and grab liquidity from this area right here. Now, what's going to happen next? Bitcoin is in the position to flip back up. It can. And this is high time frame. I'm looking at the daily, folks. This we're talking about what might happen like the rest of the year. And it may flip up here. Given where we are in the 4-year cycle, we've only had 4 halvings. So there's not a lot of data. Like you can't look at Bitcoin and say it always does this. You just can't do that. So you need like a lot more data points to say, oh, it usually does this. But based on the few data points we have, I'd say that there's probably more time left. Now, if I zoom out here, you'll see that green rectangle. And this green rectangle that I've been saying going back probably more than a year, that my sweet spot for the top of this cycle is about 145,000. My minimum was 120,000. My maximum was 160. Now, Bitcoin could go to 200,000. Who knows what it's going to do? It could do a lot of crazy things. The world changes for Bitcoin on a regular basis. It's a new asset. We have Wall Street involved, and that can mean a lot of things. It can mean that they also suppress the price. It can mean a million things, but what it does mean is that there's a level of uncertainty. So based on the charts and based on what I know about Bitcoin, having traded it for 7 years, that's my range, about 120 to 160 for the top. And we already breached it. We got to 124,000. So technically, we've met conditions, at least a condition for me to say that the top could be in. Do I think the top is in? If I had to bet, I'd say no. I'd say we're going to see higher highs. And again, I think 145,000 is kind of a sweet spot for me. But at the moment, am I long? No. I mean, it is at the bottom of a decently defined range. I know a lot of range traders who would go long, and I have reason to go long after not too long. I don't quite have what I need to go long, but um, I think if you want to look at the near term, what might happen in Bitcoin is maybe a little more rangy, and at least a pop up to this 114 to 115.5. But quite possible still is a deviation down to 107. And that might even count as a redefinition of the range. So I'm just going to kind of sit tight. I'm not going to trade this until I get a very clear breakdown. If I want to trade Bitcoin, what I would need would be a clear breakdown, perhaps a pullback, and then once it breaks that low sweep, might even enter that short right there and take it down probably to 108. I don't know that I'd try to go all the way to 107. Or at least I would have it a target at 107 and then I'd manage the trade as I go. That's how I would treat Bitcoin. Not a lot of meat on the bone if I'm going to try to trade the breakout to this liquidity. It's kind of a small trade. Maybe on a lower time frame, I could probably pull something off. I mean, this is the 3 hours, so there's room. I know a lot of range traders who they're just probably already in. They're like, screw it. It's the bottom of the range. I'm in. And then if they lose the trade, they lose the trade and they take the next trade. That's how a lot of traders would do. And even just to the top of the range, you're looking at a 2-to-1, 3-to-1, depending on how you do your stops. So not a bad way to go here. Range traders make money. So that's what I have for Bitcoin. Let's see, we got, and you know what? We'll talk about Solana and Ethereum and stuff. We'll go do that in the private live lab. So before we go, though, get the free algo links in the description. We'll also let you know when we're going to do live trading. We did some really good live trading last Thursday. We're probably going to do it again next Thursday. I still have to, I'm still waiting on word for that. But in the meantime, via the Gorilla. And did you have anything to add before we moved on to the private live lab?
No, I don't.
All right. Well, can you get us out of here, sir?
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, listen, follow us over. Learn to trade like a hedge fund pro and be proficient in the chaos that is to come. Learn to profit, learn to take advantage, learn to leverage. AlgoFactory.tech. Take it away, cowboy.
Join us or die.
Just kidding. You're not going to die.